Hi, I'm Mary Mahmood and welcome to Uni TV, your window into university life. This episode, we take a look at the built environment. We check out some funky lighting designs, get the lowdown on landscape architecture, and find out how cities of the future are shaping up. But first, what do online gaming and vintage motorbikes have to do with architecture? Let's find out.
Hi, I'm Russell Lowe. I'm a lecturer in digital architecture at the University of New South Wales. I use computer gaming technology to teach architecture students at the Faculty of the Built Environment. I'm also into vintage bikes. One of the difficulties with an architecture practice is showing a client what it is that you've got planned for them. With this type of technology, the computer gaming technology, they can experience their environment, their new building, their new factory, their new part of the city, their new landscape, their new park, in a way that they're familiar with. And also get so much more information from things like quality of light, the sound environment, the notion of things changing over time. So what's it like when the sun comes up? What's it like when the sun sets? So we can show them this amazingly rich version of what we have in our heads, and they can engage with it quite directly and comfortably. A lot of people are using computer gaming technology around the world. What we're doing that's different is that we're prioritising off-the-shelf computer games so that anybody could go down to the shop and buy them or download them directly. In the first year, we're using it as a visualisation instrument. So essentially the students are creating environments that they're designing and being able to walk around in them, being able to experience them in teams and to see how people might actually use the environments they're doing. The next step is what our final year students are doing and our third year students. They're actually getting together inside these environments and constructing new things. You can actually have geometry in there that can be modified and edited in real time. And when you've got several different people working on something from different points of view, literally different physical perspectives, but also different points of view conceptually, they can come up with things that none of them would have been able to come up with alone because they're seeing something through a different pair of eyes. That time when I died, I fell back through the stack, which is interesting. This technology really fits with the way people are wanting to do business nowadays and wanting to be creative. You know, so we can be creative as a small group, and we can be creative as an entire planet. I think we kind of got a little close to each other, and yeah, I think so. Maybe a bit hooked up. Drawing is obviously a big part of who I am as an architect and a designer. That primacy of mark making is something that I'm really interested in. So the idea of moving to my own skin is something that's, I guess, just a natural sort of evolution from where I would draw and the importance I give to drawing. On my right arm, this interior of my right arm is Lowe, which is my family name. And on the exterior of my right arm has all the initials of the men in the family going back to the first people to come to New Zealand. So Russell's my name. Family's really important to me at the moment. I'm in a different country than the rest of my family, so it's nice to have them in some way close to me. On the left arm is a series of, I guess, sketches from a range of different notebooks that I carry. You'll find on every sort of third page or so some drawings of a motorcycle that I'm building. So those tattoos are just ideas about what that bike should look like and how different parts of it should come together. What is it about vintage bikes that attracts me? Well, I guess it's the directness of them. This notion that they're almost diagrams of vehicles. the way that they work and the different components of them to make them work are so obvious and so clear. A 1920 Douglas is one of the ones I've got, which is looks very much like a push bike with an engine in it. I recently got a 1947 Sunbeam, and the bike that you might see me riding around on in Sydney is a 1942 Harley Davidson. Everything that would make it safe and pleasant and respectable, I've removed. So now it's everything that I want it to be. Loud, objectionable, oily, filthy, and generally unreliable. All fantastic qualities in a motor vehicle, I think. I really like to think that I'm collaborating with representation, collaborating with my motorcycle when I'm riding it, and collaborating with computers when I'm thinking through design. The next series of games, the next great evolution or revolution in computer game design will be about creativity, will be about collaborative creativity. Students that grew up sharing with other students online and developing a digital virtual creative practice will be hitting our university, and we need to be planning for that and making sure that when they get here they're challenged and they're excited by the next level of interactive creativity that they can be involved in.
I'm Anton Grimes. I'm an industrial designer at the University of New South Wales, and this is my final design project, the Link scooter system. The original idea was to produce both a scooter and a hub, so two independent objects that work together as a system. But then the sort of leap of logic was, why develop every single component? You know, why not simply use existing infrastructure? The scooter itself is a rather lightweight, simple, very robust electric scooter. So it's 100 watts power, so it doesn't require registration, and it's just a single person use with a foot pedal control to go forwards or to brake. To make it to the finals of the Dyson Award is, pretty significant. I entered that along with 90 other students, and I've now made it down to the final 13 along with another 4 students from New South Wales. Okay, so the way the system works is that the users are issued with a card, which they press up against the interface, at which point it brings up a screen. They select which one of the 3 scooters they want to use. They touch it, it pops out, at which point they fold up the scooter and assemble it using that release mechanism here. They can then ride it to the next destination, at which point they see another hub, and they can return it by just clipping it straight back into the unit, where it's recharged for the next user. This project right now is really still a student concept idea. It does have a lot of things that need to be resolved about the way it's used, and particularly legal requirements to make it production ready. But I have had a lot of interest from overseas and just from online blogs as well, people discussing the idea and how they'd like to see it and what changes they think are necessary. So it's been good to see a lot of feedback internationally as well about how they'd see it sitting in a different environment that's not Sydney. Single biggest challenge of the project, I think it was probably in getting it to fit and suit an already existing system, so getting my design to work with what was already on the streets. Okay, so a key part of this project was also looking at the need for independent movement when people needed it. So imagine being able to hire a scooter from a pole like this and not have to wait on buses or timetables, and simply take it right to the destination, return it to any other pole, dock it, recharge it, and then it's ready for the next user.
This is what's known as the urban sprawl of Sydney, a main footprint covering over 1,500 square kilometres, but with outlying areas that swell to a phenomenal 12,000 square kilometres. Although this land of the quarter-acre block is in keeping with the cliched classic Aussie dream, suburbs like these, on many levels, are not ideal for the future.
We've seen cities in the past that have been unplanned, and the general consensus now that the sort of sprawling, some of the American city models that we've got are environmentally unsustainable over the long term.
Professor Bill Randolph from the UNSW City Futures Centre is researching ways to make our cities work better. Mixing design, politics, economics and planning, it is a complex, multidisciplinary field.
The urban system is a very open system, so there are all sorts of influences, internal migration, international capital flows, as well as much more local things about how houses are built, who lives in them, who owns them, and so on and so forth. So it's a very open system, and getting handles on it is very difficult.
The logical solution to the problem of urban sprawl is to go up, not out. To build apartment-style communities that allow for a higher number of dwellings per square kilometre of land. This type of urban development reduces building costs and eases demands on infrastructure and services. Communities and living spaces can be planned. Greater emphasis can be placed on public transport. And more people can live closer to main centres of employment.
Built environment is hugely contentious. It's hugely political. There are lots of vested interests. There are developers who want to develop, and there's people who don't want development, and there's governments who might want something else.
Research indicates that by the year 2030, 80% of the Australian population will live in cities. These are issues that will affect not just how our cities look, but how we live in them.
It's a challenge to the whole of the built environment sector, from the people who plan and design it, the architects at one level, the people who build and construct and deliver, and then the people who manage, and of course you and I who live in them and work in it. There's a huge sort of supply chain of people involved in delivering the built environment, and we've got to change all those components to make sustainability work in the next 20 years. It's a massive task.
Hi, I'm Peter Treat, and with me on the couch today is Dr. Peter Graham from the Faculty of the Built Environment. Peter, your work focuses on sustainability in buildings, and you're looking at the greenhouse gas emissions that come from the construction sector and from buildings each year. Can you tell me a bit about the problem globally in terms of how much greenhouse gas the construction sector is responsible for each year?
The construction sector internationally is responsible for about 30 to 40% of our global emissions each year. Buildings themselves consume up to 30% of all energy each year in the world, 25% of all water, up to 40% of all materials. The magnitude of the industry, the impact of the industry, I should say, on climate change is the most significant in terms of all industrial sectors.
That's the situation now. What's the outlook for emissions from the construction sector into the future as our global populations become increasingly urbanised?
Well, we could say that the problem is immense. We're looking at a global emergency, essentially. If you look at countries like China and India, which are adding the equivalent of our building stock in Australia each year as new construction, the emissions signature from cities globally is going to increase rapidly. At the same time, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is telling us we have to reduce our emissions by between 50 to 85% in the next 15 years. The only way countries are going to be able to achieve that is to radically improve the energy efficiency of buildings and, by extension, the energy efficiency of cities, and switch to non-fossil fuel-based energy and diversified energy. If we don't do that, we're not going to be able to avoid the worst-case scenarios of climate change.
You've been working in Paris for the last 2 years with the UN's SBCI. Can you tell us what that body is and what work they're doing?
Sure. Well, SBCI stands for the Sustainable Buildings and Climate Change Initiative, and it's a program which runs through the United Nations Environment Program. It's a partnership between global companies worldwide, the public sector, governments, and also government-based research organisations in partnership with the UN. And the idea is to provide a common platform for reaching consensus on important issues that will help mainstream sustainable buildings in general, and in particular help the industry to rapidly reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. The other component of this is to provide the industry with a voice at the table of the climate change negotiations which are going on this year, and which will, we hope, conclude in a new agreement on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Copenhagen in December. The SBCI has been working to develop a set of global guidelines which set out the core issues that need to be considered by the building industry in order to make a contribution to sustainable development. And we have also been working with our members and partners to develop common metrics and common ways of measuring greenhouse gas emissions from the building sector. Now this is really important because the way we need to provide incentives for the building industry to renovate and improve energy efficiency in buildings. A key way of doing that is to enable the industry to trade in the emissions reduced by investing in energy efficiency. In order to do that, you have to be able to measure the greenhouse gas emissions that building projects or built environments actually produce. Step one, it's called a baseline. And then you have to be able to account for the difference that the emissions, that the energy efficiency renovations make. And so we're working on metrics, ways of being able to calculate the emissions from buildings to enable things like carbon trading.
The faculty is well placed to provide insight into what it takes to create sustainable cities. Can you tell us about the work that is being done within FBE?
Well, the Faculty of the Built Environment is a multidisciplinary faculty and basically has carriage for educating all of the professions that shape and operate the built environment. The faculty has a research centre called the City Futures Research Centre, which is focusing on providing interdisciplinary capacity to solve these tricky problems like climate change, and particularly looking at the urban scale. We have programs, research programs running which are looking at the actual performance of neighbourhoods in terms of energy consumption, water consumption and so on, policy analysis to see what policies are working to improve environmental conditions in cities and which aren't, and now with the work that I've been doing for UNEP and the capacity in looking at building performance and from using globally consistent frameworks, we're in a position now to really offer a range of strategic research looking at the performance of the building sector from everything from the level of the building through to the level of the neighbourhood through to the level of cities. We're currently developing a series of computer models which will allow us to maintain a database of the performance of cities so that we can analyse in the future the influence of building design, building occupancy, neighbourhood design and so forth on key issues such as climate change.
Thanks very much, Peter.
It's a pleasure.
Well, my name's Rena Burnaby and I'm a Senior Lecturer in Industrial Design. I'm a co-founder and director of Burnaby Freeman, which I established in 2002 with Kelly Freeman. We focus on doing lighting design. It's often been described as decorative, feminine, quite evocative of the past, lighting and furniture. And we're just moving into doing more architectural type design as well. We did this chandelier called the Penis Chandelier. We were invited to do that by Justin Hems for the establishment during Design Week 2002. With lighting, there's also this wonderful spectacular that happens every time you turn the light on. We were basically given 250 Evian bottles and said, go and design a chandelier with it. We came up with these almost frilly neck collars. Unscrewed the top, you stuck this on, you screwed the top back on, and it became this shroud for the bottle. But all together en masse, it just became this beautiful, you know, decorative, really high-end product at the same time. Last year we won the Bombay Sapphire Design Discovery Award. The concept for Totem, we wanted to design a light that was multifunctional, I suppose. It comes in sections and it could be put together as you wanted it to be put together. It's actually looking at heirlooms of the past that we would have in our domestic interiors. So we looked at cut crystal in this case, and we used very archetypal forms of vases and vessels. This year we've really focused on putting that into production because it was never a design just to win an award. To really be able to design something with meaning and design something that's going to last, you have to understand what it's made out of. You have to understand what the machine can do. And if you understand them, and then you can really express the essence of those, and then you can even push them, well, that's when you can do something that's exciting. I definitely think I'm a better academic because of my work. Because I'm, you know, completely up to date with industry, with all sorts of contacts out there, and with manufacturing. I think because I'm an academic, it's made my design work better because I write about my design work and I reflect on it. It's about storytelling, basically. It's about connecting with people on an emotional level. And I think, if anything, industrial design, particularly in Australia where manufacturing isn't thriving, we need to look at that side of it because we're the design thinkers. You know, and that's what we can sell. We don't have the industry, so that's what we can sell. And that's what I think is so exciting. That's where the most exciting stuff happens. So, I mean, it's a fantastic course. I really do believe that, a fantastic career, but you have to love it.
Hi, I'm Amy Ramalis, and here with me today we have Matt Coggan, who's a landscape architecture student at UNSW.
That's right, yeah.
And Matt, you're also part of a group called My Power. So could you tell us a bit about that?
We decided that we wanted to take a year off uni and do something a little bit different. And what we came up with was to cycle around Australia for the year. So it started as a small idea and then it developed into quite a big project, and the university was a supporter of the tour as well. And basically what we were doing was we were cycling around to communities around the entire coastline, including Tasmania, and we're going to schools and visiting communities and teaching them about how to live more sustainably.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're a landscape architecture student. What is that all about?
Basically, I was originally thinking about doing architecture, and then I saw this thing, landscape architecture, and I didn't know what that was all about really. And I learned that it's basically designing everything except for buildings. So, and because I've always really had an interest in the environment, I thought, well, that sounds like it's right up my alley. So you get the landscape designer, horticulturalist, there's all these different tags that a landscape architect sort of lies under, but basically what we do is we design the outer spaces of the world. Okay. So that's a large scale explanation of it, but basically we work with architects to make sure that what's being designed with a building is also being considered outside. So we do projects like the grounds of a university, housing developments like retirement villages and things like that, with a lot of grounds outside, all the way down to the scale of Jamie Durie doing backyard blitz. But there's not many of us that just work exclusively in that field. It's tending to look at a much larger scale. So I'm in graduating studio at the moment, and we're looking at a massive area at White Bay, just underneath the Anzac Bridge, and it's about 80 hectares, and we're looking at housing 10,000 people there, and that includes like schools and all that sort of thing. So it also has a fair bit of urban planning in it as well. So and with the direction that all development is going now with sustainability, then sort of our knowledge in the environment is a really important driver of developments of that scale now. So it's yeah, a really exciting profession to be in at the moment.
Definitely, yeah. So you've travelled for a year, you're almost finished uni. What's next with My my power?
Yeah, well, this year we've obviously been really busy with all of our other things, but we've just been working on the next stage, and it involves starting up an urban farm in our area in the Sutherland Shire. So we were just lucky enough to get a grant from the Banksia Foundation, and that's a $10,000 community grant just to get it started. So we're going to be working on that towards the end of the year when we finished uni, and then well into next year. So yeah, we've tried to get a lot of the polys involved. We've been down to Canberra, and a lot of them are interested as well. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year next year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for talking to us today. It's been very interesting, and I wish you guys all the best for your future endeavours.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Don't forget, there's a lot more about landscape architecture and everything else on the programme on our website, so check it out. I'm Mary Mammoth, and I'll catch you next time on Uni TV.